Survivor specialists John and McKenna are back with this week's Survivor
Oh,
Rewind.
now it says it's recording for me. It did not for the longest time. It was just saying scheduled. I was like, did John hit the button?
I did. It's okay. We're live. We are here to break down this week's episode of Survivor 46, but in the past.
Yes. So we are talking this episode of 46 and relating it to our outwit, outplay, and outlast moments from other seasons. And these episodes of 46 are honestly getting harder and harder for us because they are just they're great game players and are starting to do things that no other Survivor player has done, or it's just like these very broad topics that we can't necessarily like, oh yeah, that's happened in like 20 seasons, but where can we pinpoint? So I'm really digging this season. It started out a little bit rough for me, but I think the post merge is really picking up this season.
Yeah, I think these characters have really gotten a chance to shine in this post merge. I think seeing Venus go here absolutely breaks my heart. I was texting you during this episode, McKenna, how much it broke my heart because she's phenomenal casting. I love Venus so much. She showed up on this season. She gave us something that we've kind of missed on Survivor for a long time, and I'm really glad to have it back. Representing Canada really well, represented persons really well. Like, fantastic casting all the way through. Loved having her here on the season. But I mean, we have to be a little broader with our strokes when we have a fourth person on the season voted out with an idol. Like, I know listeners, you love listening to us, but I know you don't want to hear us talking about the same thing over and over and over again. So we have to change things up a little bit. So yeah, some of our topics this week might be a little out there and a little more far-reaching, but they relate to the episode, I promise.
Yeah. Our real struggle is kind of finding an episode that matches well. Like, there were some episodes earlier this season where like, damn, this hits hard. And we're just like, for this one, it's there if you kind of like squint a little bit and tilt your head.
Yeah.
But we still have some moments. Okay, so let's dive into our outwit moments where our 46 moment that we're comparing past things to is this Q Maria Charlie 3, where Maria and Charlie are tight, Maria and Q are tight, Charlie and Q are not that tight, and Charlie is pinning Q as Maria's number one, and just kind of that relationship of a trio. And when John and I were looking for examples for this, we were finding it hard to find that trio that like someone is like close. I don't know. There's no dynamic quite like Maria, Charlie, and Q, but we got some comparisons.
Yeah, this is an interesting approach to a trio here because I don't know, it's so fascinating because throughout the entire game so far, we're told Charlie and Maria are tight. Obviously, they started in the same tribes together. They've been tight the entire time. They've been working in lockstep. We see them bouncing ideas off each other. And then a lot of this episode is Charlie pushing Q as Maria's number one.
Exactly.
Q's in Maria's pocket. Q is listening to Maria. Like, this is the thing. And even so far as when Charlie steps himself out of this reward and like Maria's up there deciding who to take as the second person, and Charlie's like, no, take me out of it. Is he doing this strategically to make, like, knowing Maria is going to take Q in this instance?
I don't think knowing taking Q, but I think probably doing it strategically to paint more like less of a target on him and Maria, and also knowing that 4 people are probably going to be left back at camp, which is the majority. He wants to be in that know, and be having like the conversations before the challenge as well with some of the people. So I think he'd rather be in the know than fed because that $1 million can feed him later.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one of the interesting things when we look at this dynamic and the way that Charlie pushes Q as the number one is it's clearly taking a target off of him as someone who is close to Maria. In fact, we see
Mhm.
when it comes down to the vote in this episode, the girls are like, we need Charlie. And then the other three are like, we need Charlie. But both are fairly certain they have Charlie. It puts
Yep.
him just in this middle position where he ultimately does get to make the decision here. But I
Mhm.
mean, clearly we do see when the vote does happen, it's another pile on. All the votes go on to Venus with the save the vote from Ben on Kenzie.
Mhm.
But it's interesting because I think like with my example for this, and we're thinking about a three that's like kind of a decoy three. I'm looking at winners at war, and I'm looking at the way Tony and Sarah really played up how close Sarah and Sophie were after Sophie gets voted out. And it's a different situation because it's not happening beforehand, but it's definitely a ploy by the two of them to lessen this the idea of them working in tandem, despite the fact that they had been on 2 seasons together already.
That plus I think Tony using the Sophie blindside to further solidify Sarah with him as well.
Mhm.
So like there is no other where Charlie's kind of doing that with Q, like let's get Q out or put more suspicion on Q and Maria so then I'll either be able to squeak by or um have Maria back closer to me. That there is
And
no other.
that's the interesting thing about a three in Survivor. When you're thinking about threes, obviously there's going to be a bit of an imbalance because we never really get a solid like 3-3. Even thinking about some of the like more iconic trios, right? They tend to get broken down into duos. Like think about like
Mhm.
token chains, right? Where yes, you have JT, Steven, and Taj, but Taj is kind of that like next one down because it's a final two. Steven, JT obviously
Yeah.
go to the end together, and that's kind of how you think about it.
I also think about it with where Steven is the focal point of that alliance, just like
Mhm.
Maria is the focal point of that alliance, where, you know, Taj and Steven are closer than Taj and JT. JT and Steven are closer than Taj and JT. So it's like Steven is that like middle person where that's kind of what Maria is playing as well.
Yeah, and that's what that's what Sarah was in Winners at War, right? She was
Mhm.
close to Sophie, she was close to Tony, and because of that, it kind of positioned themselves in a way where Sarah didn't expect this from Tony to get Sophie
Yeah.
blindsided here. But it's very clear in that next episode, and we know this because of like post game coverage and everything like that,
Mhm.
that they played up everything that like that argument on the beach afterwards to really emphasize the fact that how could we possibly be working together now, even
Mhm.
though we see them working in tandem for the rest of the season at that point.
Yeah, exactly. Um, so my moment is like similar, right? Where we have I'm going Ghost Island here, where we have Dom and Wendell, this dominating force, and like Tony and Sarah are also a big dominating force. Um, and then we have Laurel, and she is with Dom and Wendell, also Donathan, but then he gets voted out at 4. And Laurel makes such inroads with Wendell, and they become Wendell becomes that linchpin of that center focus. Um, and Dom wants to get out Wendell, where Charlie wants to get out Maria, but due to circumstances, I mean, we
Yeah.
don't know yet how it'll turn out um, in 46, but you know, due to circumstances, Dom wasn't able to get out Wendell. They weren't so he had to take Wendell to the finals or well, send him to fire. That was his last
Mhm.
shot.
Yeah, and it's really interesting because I think the similarities when we look at the Laurel situation is Q is the Laurel in this in
Mhm.
46, right? Where not not the center of everything, not the person who, not
Started
really
on the
part
same
of the
tribe.
pair. Yeah, exactly. But instead, he's the person being brought in, and we see this like he's a member of Maria's arms race,
Mhm,
where and that's what's so fascinating about these threes is when you have a three, you want to be the two within a three. And while it's not an official three, obviously, like they have a three with Ben as well from just like being on Sika together,
mhm,
but it's very clear Q is tightest with Maria now, and that's threatening to Charlie. I think that's why we have conversations in 46 from Charlie about, oh, well, I have to consider going against Maria because Maria is at a point where she is getting too powerful in the game because of how close she is with Q. And when you look back at Ghost Island, that's the perfect example of how that can be incredibly dangerous for you
mhm.
because tie vote between the two of them, all of a sudden the third person has to vote, and that's how Wendell wins the game. Is
Yep.
because he made that relationship with the third person in their alliance.
Mhm. Exactly. I mean, if it all comes down to it, Maria's got Q's vote, and that's, another reason why Charlie would want Q out.
Mhm. Yeah, it's an interesting situation where Charlie's trying to position himself here, but I don't know how many times
Or
can
I
you.
mean, him taking Maria out too also
Mm,
eliminates that because then who's Q voting for? Like, he wouldn't have the chance to vote out
yeah,
Maria or vote for Maria because she's not there.
yeah, but like the big thing here is how many times can Q just be the decoy vote in 46?
Listen, all the way to the end. Could be.
I just feel like at this point, if someone tells you that Q's the vote, you just have to follow it up with, yeah, but who's the actual vote?
I know, but then they're gonna keep saying, "No, this is the real time," and it's still not gonna be the real
Yeah,
time.
I honestly wouldn't be surprised if this happens till the end and then Q just ends up at Final Tribal Council because of it. I
Yeah.
wouldn't be surprised if
Mhm.
he is just remains the decoy vote for every single vote. We're at what, final six now,
Yes.
right?
2
Yes,
more.
two more. So I don't
That's
know. We'll see. I could
insane to
see it
me.
happening. I could honestly see it happening, and that's where the like Laurel of it all is different. And I think this is a
Mhm.
learning experience from the Laurel situation because Laurel was so tight with it in that group that
Mhm.
there was never a consideration to vote out Laurel,
Yeah.
right? Like Dom and Wendell know they have to go after each other, but there's never a consideration to take out the other person and take someone outside of the alliance with them to the end instead.
Mhm. Yeah, exactly. Do you have any more on this 3 situation, John?
It's so hard to navigate, and using it as a decoy in order to minimize, like, to both, because it's so weird in 46 how Charlie's navigating it because he's both using Q to lessen his relationship with Maria, but also kind of like as this potential exit ramp so that he can vote Maria at the same time. And it's this
Mm,
weird balancing act that we just don't normally see in Survivor. Like you said, it was hard for us to find these options. So, or just these examples, because a lot of the times threes are more balanced than this three, or
yeah.
we don't have someone utilizing a member of the three quite the way that Charlie is here.
Mhm. Exactly. I agree. Alrighty, so now we're going to move on to our outplay moment. And I feel like we couldn't not talk Survivor Pizza because this is the reward for the challenge. And Survivor Pizza, I feel like, has just gone downhill. With every season, it just gets worse and worse and worse and worse. And Peridium actually has a video that John and I watched the other night to study up for this video for this podcast. And it's all about Survivor Pizza and like tier ranking Survivor Pizza.
Yeah, and it's very clear watching that video that Survivor Pizza kind of sucks. There's no consistency to it. A lot of the time it's undercooked or it's like cooked too much. There's no in between. There's no perfect pizza.
It's pasta sauce on a cracker with unmelted cheese. It's, I'm a big lover of terrible pizza. Like, I love Pizza Hut. Like, that's not real pizza. I love, sometimes gas station pizza is great. I love frozen pizzas, but this I feel like is just a whole nother level. And they also can't just have like a topping or just cheese. It has to be like olives, peppers, tomatoes. Why don't we throw on ham, pineapple, bacon? And it's like, this is one slice of pizza. Why is there that much on one slice of pizza?
The most fascinating thing about Survivor Pizza is not only is it this hodgepodge of ingredients most of the times, they always seem to go for the ingredients that are the most divisive.
Yeah, it's never
Right?
just
Like,
a crap ton of meat. It's like a crap ton of meat and vegetables. And I'm like,
but it's always like, here's some olives on this pizza, and like olives, highly divisive. Some people love them, some people hate them. Pineapple on pizza is literally one of the biggest arguments on the entire internet.
and the pineapple is with other things like olives, and we're like,
I mean, I
why?
get it. I get it from like a palate perspective. It's just weird that these aren't just like very basic pizzas. But
Cheese
you
and
know what?
pepperoni.
It's fine. It's fine. It's fun. It's fun.
So, we're talking about how gross the Survivor pizza is. So I'm gonna lead in with my moment here first. In Blood versus Water, there's a reward where you can pick from a menu of things. You can have like steaks, burgers. What does Hayden choose? The pizza. Never in my days on Survivor would I choose to order a pizza because that scares me from every season that I've seen. Granted, Blood versus Water is before Edge of Extinction, I believe it was, with the just
A pizza
pile of
pile?
pizza.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I just like, I don't know. Hayden choosing pizza as his reward to like indulge in some normal food is just not the move.
You know what? And forgive me for going a little Liz on this topic, but I have pizza every Wednesday night as I watch Survivor. It is my Survivor meal, mainly because I get off work and I have to watch Survivor on the East Coast broadcast so that McKenna and I can plan this podcast. So it's easy to throw a pizza in the oven and then eat that.
Mhm.
If I have been deprived of pizza for Hayden, this is the final 5 reward challenge, I believe, in Blood versus Water. The first final? Yeah. Because it's after Rocks. It's right after Rocks. So it's the final 5 in quotation marks. I understand wanting a pizza. Like, pizza is one of those things where I don't think I would ever say pizza is my favorite food, but I think it's one of those things that it's always the safe option.
I mean, listen, I'm from New York. Of course I love myself some pizza, but like this pizza is like I just can't get behind it. I too often indulge in pizza when it's your fiance's favorite food. You tend to have it at least once a week, if not more, because you order like 3 pies for 2 people, and have a whole bunch of leftovers. But anywho, I feel like I would want something different than like cheese on a cracker, basically. If it's
I
some
think
thick crust pizza, okay.
I think it almost feels like a safe option on the island, though, right? Like, we've talked about it many
Not
times
with all the
before.
stuff on it. That's not all right. That's not safe for me. I'm a
No,
very
that
picky
not that
eater.
type of safe. I'm not
Mm,
talking about that type of safe though. Like the safe option of, oh, this is going to be an enjoyable thing no matter what. I'm talking about the digestive side of
mhm,
safe, where
mhm.
pizza, yeah, it's got a bit of carbs, but like shouldn't be the worst thing with that crust, depending on how thick it is and how doughy
True.
it is and all that. But
True,
we've
agreed.
talked about the
The
effects of
steak and the
red
burger
meat.
are dangerous. The steak and
Yeah,
the
right?
burger are
Like, red meat's
dangerous.
just dangerous to have after not eating meat for a long time. It can completely send your stomach in knots. I get Hayden's choice here. The funny thing is, Hayden didn't even win this reward. He's just taken on this reward by Sierra, who
Mhm.
actually won it. and gets to make this decision. It's also just a weird reward that it's like this choice between these things, because we
Yeah,
don't
it's not
usually
just
see
this
that.
thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right. Like a lot of the times in Survivor, when we have a reward, it's either here are plenty of options for you, or here's the one thing we're giving you. In this case, it's like, choose one of these things.
Yeah, or it's like, we're sponsored by Applebee's, Outback, where it's
Yeah,
like we have a set menu because it's Applebee's or Outback. But John, one of the best pizza challenges versions of Survivor Pizza is your moment.
when I think pizza on Survivor, I mean there are some pretty iconic pizza moments in Survivor, obviously, right? Again, pizza pile in Edge of Extinction, disgusting, beyond belief. Pretty cool though. Jervis getting a single slice of pizza flown in on a helicopter,
So
also
good.
pretty cool.
I almost did that as my moment, and then John was like, "Let's find something else."
Well, there's other options. We talk about Borneo a surprisingly lot on this podcast.
Because it's great.
But I have to go to probably one of the most hilarious pizza moments that you might not associate with a pizza moment right away, because the reason why it's such a great moment isn't the people who win the reward, it's the people who lose the reward. And that is the Villains tribe on Heroes versus Villains, because this is the episode where the villains misinterpret tree mail. They think they're merging. They pack up their camp. They haul it all to the reward challenge. And then Jeff's like, I don't know what you're doing. This is just a reward for a pizza party. We're going bowling. And Coach makes the decision to sit out Sandra and Courtney in a reward challenge, meaning they have to participate in the next immunity challenge, which at this point is likely right before the merge. And losing this would mean the villains go in with even numbers to the heroes.
Also, it's a bowling challenge. Sandra and Courtney can bowl. It's not physical. It's not brute strength. It's not cardio. It's not, like, if this challenge is bowling, the immunity challenge is going to be 10 times worse than this. It's going to be physical. And it's just so crazy that he's just like, no, we need this sustenance for immunity. So let's play all our good people here. But it's bowling, and not even like normal bowling. You're bowling with coconuts. And it's not like you can't fully predict how it's going to go. So your quote unquote best people are not even going to be your best people.
And the funny thing is like Coach justification isn't just, yeah, this will make us better in the immunity challenge. It's, I really want that pizza. And I get it. There was a lot of pizza. This reward had a lot of pizza, just like 46. 46 had an absurd amount of pizza for 3 people.
I don't know.
He ate 26 slices of pizza.
Also, it depends on how big the slices are. Sometimes pizza like cuts it into.
Yeah, but we saw the slices. The slices were like normal sizes of pizza slices.
I don't know.
26.
That's also
the average pizza has like 8 to 12 slices. That man ate probably 2.5 to 3, maybe even 4 pizzas.
That's gross.
Yeah, think about it. When you think about it, how many of those slices add up to a single pizza? It's a lot. That's a lot of pizza.
1, maybe 2 slice girly. So
it's funny, and just Heroes versus Villains. Again, the reward of the pizza doesn't even seem like that big of a deal, but the fact that it was enough to motivate Coach to make probably the worst decision in a challenge in that season is so funny.
Yeah, it really is such a good moment, and I do highly recommend watching that Podium video about pizza, because it's just like chef's kiss. He does such a great job on that one. We are going to move into our Outlast portion of the show, and just like last week, with favorite blind sides, we are going to do favorite idol finds because Venus finds an idol this episode. And sadly, it is another voted out with idol moment. But we are going to talk about our favorite idol finds.
I'll tell you this: had Venus used that idol, this would probably be up there on my list. I would have been so happy.
So I'll talk about mine first, and I'm gonna go into David versus Goliath with Dan's idol find in the pre-merge. This is one of my favorites because it starts out with everybody looking and looking and looking. They're like, where can it be? Blah 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 blah. The whole camp is looking, and then we get Dan saying, yeah, they can't find it because it's already in my pants. And he pulls it out of his crotch. And then we go into him, Kara, and Angelina finding it together. And it's just so interesting editing wise because I remember watching it and they hadn't done anything like that before, where it was like, oh, I already found it. Now let's go back and I'll retell you the story. It's always been like, all right, I was looking and looking and looking and found the idol. And it's like you talk about it as you're finding the idol in confessional with like the B-roll of camp finding the idol. So it was really interesting for Dan to be like, see, I already have it. Now I'll tell you how it happened.
The flashback is something that Survivor hasn't utilized quite enough. They did it in 37, and it was fantastic. It is a great editing moment, and that's what makes this idol find so memorable, right? Because normally we just see the lead up to an idol hunt. Because as Russell Hantz said in Samoa, right? Like, if there's a camera on you, it means you're probably close to finding an idol. If there's no camera person, you're not going to find an idol. And this is one of those moments where, because those camera people are usually following people as they look for idols, like they did in 46, right? Like, it was pretty clear there was a camera crew with Venus when she finds his idol. Again, because there should always be a camera crew with people as they find the idol. But it's with Dan, it's just, we're not used to that type of storytelling in Survivor because it's new really for reality television at that point to have this flashback that fills us in. And there was time where Survivor was using it too much. Now I think we're at a point where it's a little too little. But it's so clever. It is the finding of the idol, not that exciting. But the way that it's presented in that episode is so thrilling that it leaves this lasting impression on you of, yeah, this was an important idol. And I mean, like, the idol was kind of important in this season, right?
Yep. Yeah. It was the one that gets nullified, I'm pretty sure.
It is.
Oh. All right. John, the moment we've all been waiting for, the Patreon coverage for this season is your moment. We are talking Guatemala, episode 9. So I'll let you get more into it.
This is the first idol find. It's so interesting, right? Guatemala is such a interesting season. It's a very polarizing season. Some people love it, some people hate it. A lot of people just like smack it in the middle of their lists. This is a season that changed the course of Survivor. And I don't think it gets enough recognition for that, because the introduction of the hidden immunity idol, and yes, it's not the same hidden immunity idol that we have in modern day Survivor. It's quite different, in fact. You find it, you play it prior to the votes being read, and you essentially give yourself an immunity.
Prior to the votes being cast.
That is right. Prior to the votes being cast. And it's a time when, production was still very stingy about when you're allowed to talk at tribal council and when you're not allowed to talk at tribal council. So even when we do get to this idol eventually being played in the same episode it's found, Jeff's like, you're not allowed to talk, go vote. So it has this weird mechanic, and obviously that's not what new age Survivor would do. Current Survivor would be like, please talk this out. We want to see you guys throw each other under the bus.
They want to see that live tribal.
Exactly. But the way this idol is found, because it's the first one, and the concept of the idol is introduced an episode prior to the idol actually being found.
Mhm.
And it's in the merge in Guatemala. And Jeff's like, hey, by the way, this exists. There is a hidden immunity idol at your camp somewhere in the jungle of Guatemala. That's all you need to know. You don't know what you're looking for. You don't know where it is. You have no idea, but it exists. So there's a bit of like speculation about it, a bit of hunting for it. And then in this episode where we do get it found, Judd wins this reward challenge, and he gets a clue to the idol. And it says, uh, it's a poem, and it essentially says it's not buried, it's not in the ground.
Just look up.
Just look up. Yeah. And the weirdest thing that makes this such a cool idol find, Judd decides to share the opposite of this clue with everyone. He goes
Mhm.
into camp after him and Stephanie have read the clue. He's like, yeah, so it's definitely on the ground.
I'll just be real with you guys, be open and honest, it's on the ground. And
And
when you can go.
yeah, and then he but because of this, like Gary gets to a point. This episode's a little weird because Gary gets targeted because Jamie misinterprets what Gary says to him when he says he's going to vote with him. He says that it's going to vote for him
For him.
instead. So Gary's like, I better go find this idol. And
Mhm.
he's out hunting for it, looking on the ground, as Judd has said. And he catches Judd in the jungle, looking in the trees. And he's just like, that makes literally zero sense. Clearly, Judd lied to us.
Yeah. And then it just cuts off.
Yeah, it doesn't show him finding the idol, which is interesting. You'd think Survivor would make a big deal about it, but instead, it's building to this point of did Gary find the idol? Because at this point, we as an audience know that he needs to find it.
Mhm. Yeah, so we watched episode 9 of season 11, Guatemala, Secrets, Lies, and Idol Surprise, over on the Patreon, and we kind of deep dive everything. So become a patron.
Yes. Um, I just think it's really interesting when we look at the Venus idol find is nothing spectacular. The interesting thing is Venus is the person who, other than Kenzie, has the best chance of finding this idol. I think because she is the only person who knows how idols are being hid on 46.
Yes. Because, she was around Randon, she was around Hunter, Kenzie was with Tiffany. So, you know, she does have some knowledge, but I feel like it's obvious knowledge too, though, where it's like it's a piece of burlap shoved underneath a log.
I think that's a bit different than we've normally been used to when it comes to idols, though. I feel like this was more. This felt closer to a Guatemala idol hide than it did more recent seasons of Survivor. Because yes, it's this piece of burlap stuck under a log, but I feel like that log didn't really look very like inconspicuous at all, right? Like, or conspicuous, I should say. It didn't really stand out that much. And I
Mhm.
feel like that's kind of been the case with all of these idols in 46. Tiffany's idol was just in a rock wall. And while we used to see idols like that, we haven't for a long time.
Well, I mean, 46 should just be happy that, nobody wanted to use that log as, kindling for the fire like they did in
Yes,
Guatemala.
yes, that's true. It's just interesting. And it's interesting to see this evolution in idol hiding by production,
Mhm.
where I think they just got tired of people finding idols so easily.
I mean, yeah, I can see it. I like a little bit more of a search and a struggle. I also really liked the clue aspect of the boxes,
Mhm.
and wished it kind of went along into, the merge idol, that there was maybe just another clue hidden there. Like it wasn't the exact idol. It was like another clue to lead you to somewhere else.
The idol hunts. It was so much fun. And
Mhm.
this is fine. I like it. And again, nothing great about Venus, although I will say Venus finding that idol, I did jump up off my couch. I was very excited and very disappointed when we got to the end of the episode. But I don't know. I'm excited to see where Survivor goes with idols in general moving forward because they don't seem as pronounced as they used to be. Because correct me if I'm wrong, and I didn't quite pay enough attention when Venus did find this one. There was no like tribe color around it. It was just like burlap with
I think
fun,
it was
right?
just a burlap. I want you to highlight Joseph's last comment here of that is my favorite way they hide an idol is just in like a challenge where you have to find
Yes.
like Jeremy in Second Chances, Troyzan in Game Changers, like Kelly Wentworth in Second Chances. Like it's I love when they hide it in challenges.
Yeah, and I think we got really bored of how idols were being. I think like leading up to, I would say, Winners at War, where we really got to that point where it's like, hey, look, it's just sitting in this tree. I
Mhm.
think we got to a point where idols were too obviously hidden, and they're getting back to a point where they're not so obviously hidden. And I'm really excited for that moving forward. I just hope I just hope we get a buried idol every once in a while. Like we kind of did this season with these buried boxes that they had to dig
Yeah,
up.
exactly. Well, John, do you know what's going on in the Specialist Universe?
This week is a little weird for the penultimate week because Phil's on vacation. So if you haven't already, the prediction and power rankings, which are usually on Sunday, happened already. Check it out. That was Phil and Heidi from season 44. Great episode, as always. Phil and Blake dug into using your idol, which the cast of 46 probably could have used that advice beforehand. They dug into that yesterday. McKenna and Phil talked about the amazing race yesterday. Phil and Will broke down this episode. Again, like these episodes are still giving on 46. They are so much fun. I'm really enjoying this season, and I'm really looking forward to these last two episodes. Next week, Blake will be joining Will for the recap. There won't be a digging deeper, and we'll be right back. And I don't know if Deal or No Deal Island is happening or not. I know the cinema specialists are taking a break next week.
Oh, I
We'll
don't
be
know if
back
it's
at you in 2
happening,
weeks.
but it will be at some point because there's still one more episode.
There you go. And McKenna and I are going to be back here next week, rewinding the penultimate episode of 46. And I have to
Mhm.
say, I'm really excited. Penultimate episodes tend to be pretty good.
Well, we'll just wait and see.
Goodbye, everyone.
Goodbye.